Today on Across the Fence, we're using science to help us answer an age-old question. Exactly how nasty is my kitchen sponge? And what can I do about it? Help is on the way. Let's go learn more from my expert guest. Hello, Vermont. This is the show I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to do because, let's face it, ignorance is bliss. And I know I've been guilty of keeping a past its prime kitchen sponge in rotation. But spring, and it is almost spring, is a time of renewal. So what better time than now to face the music and make new habits? Helping me confront the cold reality of gross sponges is Dr. Todd Pritchard, a senior lecturer in the Nutrition and Food Sciences department at UVM. And Dr. Todd, I have to say, I'm just really glad that it is not my kitchen sponge that was used as the guinea pig for our experiment today. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Amy.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Fun discussion to have today.
It's at least a disgusting discussion to have today. So actually, let's start there. What makes kitchen sponges so gross? I think we know it when we smell it, we know it when we feel it, but what's happening?
You smell that funkiness to it.
Yep.
You have to realize that bacteria, just like us, they need water, they need food, they need a nice warm environment, and that kitchen sponge has all of those. We're using that sponge to wipe off food from plates or a mess on a counter, and we're rinsing it. So now we've got food residues, we've got water, and we leave it out all night on our kitchen counter, and we have just given it all of these beautiful things to grow.
Yeah, so we've just created a little Petri dish.
We have done exactly that.
And then we wipe it all over our countertops and our
Exactly.
dishes. So the bacteria that we're looking for today, like that you were looking for in this experiment, what kind of bacteria is that?
They're called coliform bacteria, so they're sort of an indicator organism that can tell us a little bit about the cleanliness or the sanitary nature of something. Viewers have probably heard of coliform before when the lake gets shut down because the coliform counts are high.
Oh, right. Yes, actually, it was funny. It didn't even dawn on me. That's exactly what they're looking for in the lake.
That's what they're looking for. And it can be an indicator of fecal matter. So that's part of the reason we worry about them.
Yikes. Okay. And can it make you sick if you've got coliform in your sponge?
Most of the time, these are probably things that we're living with all the time. So unless you're eating the sponge, it's probably not going to be an issue. But
oh, I don't even want to think about that. Now I just got this image of like sucking on the sponge. Oh, all right. No.
So as a general rule, no. But there are some coliform that can make you sick. So we've all heard of E. coli or salmonella. Those fall into that same group of organisms we call coliforms.
Okay. All right. So we decided to put a kitchen sponge to the test. Dr. Todd procured a sponge. I'm not going to say from where, but it was not my house, and enlisted the help of a couple of students from his HACCP class to run some tests. Let's take a look. How gross is an average kitchen sponge? We popped into the microbiome lab in the Nutrition and Food Sciences department at UVM to find out. With help from Dr. Todd, students Gabriella Spungen and Nika Hare set up an experiment to look for coliform bacteria. Gabriella added some phosphate solution to 1/2 of our dirty sponge.
So we put this in, shut the top, hit the button.
Then it's into the stomacher, where it's paddled and agitated to expel bacteria into the solution. That liquid? Yeah, probably teeming with bacteria.
I can hold the bag for you if you want.
I'm doing it until which?
The -4.
Okay.
Gabriella pipettes successively more diluted samples of the bacteria solution onto plates. The stronger the dilution, the easier the plate will be to read after the culture has grown.
If we get a single bubble on there, that represents 1,000 that were in the original.
Meanwhile, Nika is taking a different approach, microwaving her half of the dirty sponge before proceeding with the bacteria collection and plating. Why does microwaving kill the microbes?
A lot of the microbes can't survive at that high of a temperature. So like a heat kill step is really effective.
Nika's the second gen in her family to study microbiome with Dr. Todd. Her dad, Sam Keene, went on to open Burlington's Foam Brewery. Yes, you need microbiome skills to brew beer and kill bacteria. Nika, do you like this kind of hands-on science?
Yeah, I do. I think growing up having a dad, he did a lot of hands-on stuff in the kitchen, and in the brewery, and that's always just been super interesting to me.
The finished plates go into an incubator for 24 hours. Gabriella, Nika, and Dr. Todd go back to class. And we sit back and wait. Okay, Vermont, are you ready to find out what was in that sponge? Dr. Todd, you brought the plates with you.
I did.
What did we learn?
I did. So let's take a look at this one here. So this is actually the sponge that has not been treated. So this was just a kitchen sponge. And on this plate, actually it's set up so every dot we see with an air bubble represents 10 million coliform in the original sponge.
That's a big number.
Yes, and well, this plate has about 30 on it, so you do the math. That means that sponge had somewhere around 300 million coliform, confirmed coliform bacteria in that sponge.
Yikes.
So quite a few to start with.
Quite a few to start with. Okay, but then Nika microwaved her half of the sponge, and she talked about a heat kill step. So what was she doing?
Well, so the microwave really works on changing the polarity of a water molecule. It's friction that builds heat, and that's how it kills things.
Okay.
So just like...
how hot does it need to be?
Well, for something like Salmonella 165, but it was very, very hot. Even after 15 seconds, this was the sponge, you couldn't handle it.
Okay, all right.
So we look at the sponge samples, and on these, because we've killed so much, each dot represents 100, and we only averaged about 200 to 300 at the end.
So
we went from 300 million to about 300.
Okay, so that is 1,000,000 times fewer bacteria.
That's correct.
From having heat treated the sponge.
Correct. We killed 99.99993% of the bacteria.
Wow. Okay.
Now, an important thing to remember is we didn't kill everything. So we didn't sterilize it. This isn't sterilizing the sponge. We're sanitizing the sponge.
Okay. Well, and how can we do that at home? Like, let's turn this into a teachable moment for folks at home who are thinking, what do I want to do? What can they do?
Well, first of all, make sure you keep your sponge, rinse it out really well after you have food residue on it.
I think that was something, I started doing that after you and I talked about it, because I hadn't really, and I'm going to blame my husband because he doesn't squeeze the sponge, and it drives me crazy. And now when I feel it and it's wet, I get really icked out. So, okay, squeeze the sponge.
That's my family, only in reverse. My wife's the one that doesn't squeeze it out.
Yeah.
She's going to kill me for saying that, but she's the one that does it.
We all just outed our spouses right now.
But
yes.
so, and then wring it out really well.
Okay.
So rinse it 3 or 4 times, wring it out really, really well to get as much fluid out as you can. So that's one way to minimize the possibility of growth. It's not going to stop it. But you could see what we did. We only microwaved that for 15 seconds. So we put it in some saran wrap or plastic wrap, did it for 15 seconds, and it's really hot, and then that killed off, like we said.
If you wanted to do that at home, you don't need to wrap it in the plastic wrap, though. That was for us because we wanted to hold on to that, that liquid for the experiment, right?
So you'd want to do the same thing, because it helps build up the steam in there.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I stand corrected. Let the scientist teach.
So, and then the other thing that we do is we actually send it through the dishwasher each time. And in reality, its dilution is the solution in that case. You're not, it's really, there's just so much water going through, it's rinsing it all out.
Okay. That was the other thing that
And it has a sanitizing step as part of the dishwasher, so we don't worry about that.
Okay, so here you go. So these are simple solutions that you can do at home. We're going to squeeze out our sponges really well. You can always microwave them wrapped in saran wrap and stick it in the dishwasher.
Stick it in the dishwasher.
I like that. Dilution is the solution. That's a good one to remember. How about other types of sponges or like scrub brushes? Are they cleaner?
Sure. So we actually did a Scrub Daddy, and I'm by no means endorsing one thing over another, but we used a Scrub Daddy, and if you've ever used a Scrub Daddy, you know that it's very different in structure. It's much more open. It doesn't hold the water.
Yeah.
And I think
firmer and more aerated.
And more aerated. And when we did that, and I will admit this came from my kitchen, it was 2 weeks old, and we still ended up with about 30,000 bacteria.
Really?
Yeah, to start with. And then after we did the microwave for 15 seconds, we ended up with about 200. So about the same. So we got a 99.33 kill on that one. So even the Sponge Daddy we saw, it didn't have as much growth in it to start with. And I think it's just like you said, it's much more open and airy. It doesn't hold the water quite as well. anything, even bristles or things like that, can still be things that bacteria attach to when they get old.
Yeah, I was curious about bristle because there's a, in some households I have a lot of friends who they have those,
Yep.
pretty wooden brushes.
Yep.
I bought one. I have to say, then I noticed that the bristles started to get very discolored.
Yeah.
And that worried me, so I stopped using it. What am I seeing if I'm getting like discoloration
Well, so
on it?
part of it can also be that the bristles themselves are splitting open a little bit, and then that gives a place for the bacteria to actually attach.
Ah, okay.
So
Also can be a breeding ground for
Can be a
bacteria.
breeding ground.
How, if you have a wooden bristle sponge like that, what would be an effective way to treat it?
well, if it's wood, you could still put it in the microwave.
Okay.
I would not put that in the dishwasher because if it's laminated, wood doesn't do well in the dishwasher.
Okay.
So those would be some suggestions. You could even use something like chlorine and soak it in chlorine for a cap into a quart of, and then soak it in there
bleach.
for a little bit. Yeah, some bleach.
Bleach never
Bleach.
hurts. Okay, so I mentioned that Gabriella and Nika are in your HACCP class. I don't know if
Correct.
folks at home will necessarily know what a HACCP class is, but can you want to explain a little about how that kind of
Sure.
Vermonters help, or that kind of coursework helps keep Vermonters safe?
Sure. So HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points, and it's basically a food safety plan. So companies, if they're a meat company, they have to have one. FSMA, which was the Food Safety Modernization Act, required all the FDA inspected facilities to have a food safety plan, and it basically looks at what could go wrong and what are you going to put in place to make sure it doesn't go wrong, and then checking on it to make sure it didn't go wrong. And if it did go wrong, fixing it as quickly as possible. We have students that have taken the class that are in just about every food operation that there is in Vermont right now. The women who run quality assurance for Rhino and Ben & Jerry's all came through our department, all took that class, and it set them up really well.
Yeah, so it's really good to know. I mean, you can now feel a little more assured about when you go out, when you're buying food products, when you're out, like navigating Vermont's food scene,
Yep.
that there are protective measures that have been put in place, and students, maybe former UVM students, maybe students of yours, who might be out there implementing these plans and helping make sure that we're all practicing good sanitation
Exactly.
practices. I love that. Well, I have to say, I will never look at my kitchen sponge the same way again, but at least now I know what to do about it, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on, Amy, and this has been an absolute joy. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm going to now start thinking about what kinds of other gross experiments we can bring Dr. Todd in here for. So
Well, don't forget the one I said,
which was?
looking at snow for sugar on snow.
Ah, sugar on snow. Okay, here's something else to think about. So, as always, Vermont, thank you for learning and exploring with me today. And thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.